News from the hockey world today. The Washington Capitals placing Brendan Leipsic on waivers with the intention of terminating his contract. This after misogynistic comments he made in a group chat were made public on Wednesday. We've got Justin Bourne with me right now. And I should say, Justin was the video coach for the Toronto Marlies when Brendan played there. But I'm not going to ask you, Justin, about that or him specifically. I'll start by asking if you're surprised that a controversy of this nature is where we're at, given your association with the game of hockey as a player, as a coach, and now as a media member as well.
Well, I'm not quite naive enough to say that I'm surprised. It's I would say it's becoming so much less common in hockey culture today. Like this sort of thing 10 years ago was kind of like, oh yeah, that's how hockey guys talk. That's like a fairly normal thing. Or even maybe 15, 20 years ago. I've seen a huge shift in a positive way, probably in the 10 years since I stopped playing, leading up to my time with the Marlies and seeing the way the dressing room operated and how the guys interacted. This is not common anymore. And I think that's one of the reasons why it stood out so much to me and seems so exceptional, is that this is not everyday business. And I've seen some people say, well, that's hockey culture. I don't think that's the case anymore.
Justin wrote about this as well, by the way, and you could read it on sportsnet.ca. Your first line says hockey observers have developed a tendency to come across reprehensible comments. And the question I have is, like, why? Like, why is this still, for as rare as it might be today compared to 10 years ago, it's still a thing. And we know that from the comments we've seen on Twitter from people either defending Leipzig or bashing the Capitals for doing what they did today. Why is it still something that is going on? And I know that's a loaded question that you don't have an answer for per se, but.
Well, what's so terrible, Faze, is like my immediate thoughts are grim, or just like anytime you have a grouping of like 500 employees, there's going to be some people who say some terrible things in small groups. And, hockey culture is certainly no different than that. But also there's a sense of entitlement for a lot of these guys who've been sort of elevated as stars or heroes in their communities from a young age till now. So a lot of them haven't had to really go through a lot of hardship or mature as much. So you maybe see a little bit more of it within the hockey community or the sporting community in general. But I really think this is an outlier, as I said in my initial answer. And so we're still going to come across it. Anytime you have a huge group of employees anywhere, it happens. But I do think it's improving. But yeah, it's the sports culture does seem to have a higher rate of it for the reasons I mentioned.
Do you think, again, when you idolize these athletes, that's the reason why, and you wrote about this as well, saying something is unacceptable in life was so acceptable in the dressing room? Is it because, again, of a feeling of power and a feeling you're kind of bigger than everybody else?
I think that's probably part of it. There's a lot of people who have invested in you in saying, okay, we think this guy, we drafted him and we've developed him. And so when you make a mistake, there's a safety net. There's a lot of people who are invested in holding you up, right? So a lot of people put out fires for you along the way. And I think that leads to a sense of invincibility for some of these guys where suddenly the fire gets too big and no one even tries to put it out. And everyone says, oh, that's too much here. And guys learn the hard way that, you're not invincible. You are a member of society just like anyone else. And I think that's kind of what happened here, where there was just no reasonable way for the Capitals to step in. Now, if it's Alex Ovechkin, is his contract outright terminated? No,
it's a really
not even
point.
Maybe it's not. So his lot on the Capitals made it easier for them to take a hard stand here.
Still, though, what's disturbing about the news today is that people online saying the Capitals are overreacting. The comments themselves were funny, and none of that is true. It seems like some of the people are taking the lesson to be, well, don't have people like that in your group chat that are going to expose you like that, which is not the lesson. The lesson, of course, is let's be better people and let's not talk like this ever. So how, and maybe it's specific to this incident or maybe it's not, how does this change?
Well, I think these incidents, as much as they're never good in isolation, are good when you draw them out to the big picture. We're here, you and I, having this conversation about changing people's behaviors and changing the way people think and act and talk about one another. And I think that's healthy. And I think that there were very real repercussions for a guy who was on the fringes of, who knows how long his NHL career could be. Now it's like, less than 50% chance he has one at all. So we're talking about it. We're seeing very real repercussions for that behavior. I think that leads to a larger spread of understanding from other players going, okay, well, we need to not just be more careful, but we just need to avoid saying these things, let alone even thinking them.
You mentioned again in your article, and we know this given your relationship with the Marlies, your relationship with him as well. You had nothing but praise for him as a player and a guy that worked really hard. Is there anything organizationally teams can do to maybe vet this prior to signing a player, or is incidents like this kind of just one-offs and things that leave the organization kind of shocked as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, one thing the teams do want to do, and I know that's something Kyle Dubas wanted to do, is get to know the players they acquire better before they, draft them, even get to know them during the season. But something that Brian Burke mentioned on Hockey Central today, which I thought was great, was that he takes they used to take these learning examples to their team so they didn't have to learn the lessons for themselves. So he would say, all right, Ryan Lochte got in trouble, in the Olympics. We'll take that to the team and say, here, this can happen to you. And just take examples from all over sport to educate your players, maybe once, before and in the middle of the season, to just say, these guys are getting in trouble for things that you don't have to learn the hard way. You can learn the lessons from them. And I think that's a good lesson around the league. People can learn the lesson from this and not have to go through it themselves.
Justin, I know I threw a lot of loaded questions at you, so I appreciate you giving us a sense of perspective on all of this that's unique from a couple different angles. And again, he's written about this. You can read that on sportsnet.ca right now. Justin, thanks for this and continue to stay safe, man.
Yeah, thanks, Faze. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you.